Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2. Hey there, hi there, ho there. Hello, everybody. Hey, it's Ralph Hayes, RHJunior Reality Check, coming to you live over the internet through a system of tubes known as the inner tubes. Coming to you by way of YouTube, imitating the boob tube, bringing you another broadcast and a sporadic hour of my one and only live show, Spleen Squeezins. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, everybody. Okay, man, I just don't know. Nowadays, I can't seem to get anything off. I can't seem to get anything off the starting blocks at the time I want anymore. I mean, as in, I can't wake up in time to do it. I'm sitting here, and in 3 days, I'm going to be turning 48. 3 days. I turn 48 March 18th. And part of me is asking, is this it? Is this the end of the line? Is this what you have to look forward to? Is this is the rest of your life? Just waddling from your desk to your bedroom to your bathroom, and then hoping that you're conscious enough consecutive hours to accomplish something before you slip into your default state of sleep coma. Originally, it's like your whole life. Your life, you start out when you're young, you can barely control your own body, you can barely walk, and you spend all your time sleeping. And that's how your life tends to end, too. That's assuming that the decline is gentle. It's not, usually. Okay. It's an audience of 2 people! 2 freaking people! Holy crap! Sound the alarms. My Foley board. Where's my instance.com? Okay. I keep forgetting about my Foley board. There's this website called myinstance.com. Has a selection of thousands of sound effects, and you can build your own. You can build your own selection of sound effects that you like. Ha 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 ha. I'm going to stop the music for a second. I want to see how well this sound effects comes through. Let's try that again. Some of them are real quiet, some of them are real loud.
Hello? Hello? Anybody here? I've been left behind. Alone. Am I not good enough?
As you can tell, I'm an easily amused man. Okay, let's turn the music back on. Music is more entertaining at the moment. Hello, we have Eric Rowe in the channel, and we have 2 other people who are yet to type in the chat room. Come on into the chat room, type down, say hello, so we can see you and see who you are, and we can all sit and stare at you luridly. Well, another day of drama. Okay, this month, a little financial hiccup. I had to cancel payment on a check. The check had gone out, and then I went and checked my finances, and I said, "Oh crap! I had just gotten, I had gotten a surprise expense, so I had to cancel payment on the check to my landlord." And so I called the bank and I canceled payment on I stopped payment on the check. And then they sent me some paperwork, and about 2 days later, and I filled it out and sent it back. And son of a gun, I turned on my, I checked my bank balances today, and they let the check through. They let the damn check, pardon my language, they let the check through. It shows as processing, but I am currently $199 in the negative, thanks to them failing to do this. And okay, basically, this has stressed me out enough that I'm actually awake at this hour. And if they do not correct this by tomorrow morning, I'm going to be spending tomorrow getting very loud and very upset with a large number of people at my banking institution. Because $199, they're going to be bouncing that thing. I don't have overdraft protection on that account. And they've informed me that they won't give me overdraft protection on that account. I would have to close that account down and open a whole new account in order to get one with overdraft protection. They can't just change some of their paperwork over. They're really displeasing me now. And of course now this basically means that they're going to be bouncing that check back and forth between them and my landlord like a volleyball unless they fix it immediately tomorrow. Silly. You will notice I'm not giggling. Yeah. As to my story, I think I've got nailed down what I want to happen. I'll tell you this much. Now, the villain Coil, he's a very difficult villain to write for because of the nature of his power. The nature of his power is that he can split time into 2 streams and then choose which one he likes better. That's a quick, crude summary, quick, rough summary of what he does. So figuring out how the heroes outsmart a guy who can literally try everything twice is a real challenge to any writer. It requires the laziest and easiest way is for Coil to make a dramatically stupid mistake, like collapsing the timelines too early before he really knows what the outcome is. And that's how I solved that problem in Lady Bird. He was overconfident and he shut down, he collapsed the timelines early, and surprise, he hadn't gotten the outcome he wanted. He just thought he had. But for this next one, for the Warcrafter, this is going to be a bit trickier. You've got somebody who can take both, given a choice between A and B, he can choose A, B, basically, and pick and toss whichever one he doesn't like the result of. So, anybody combating, even somebody who knows what Coil is capable of, is going to be hard-pressed to really corner him. It largely involves being in a position where you can eliminate all his choices. And that's very tricky to write. Well, so, but I think I've worked it out. I think I've worked that particular problem out. A secondary problem is that I wanted to move Taylor back to a more central position in the main storyline, because the idea is that Taylor Hebert, who in the original storyline became the supervillain Skitter, she's the one who ends up saving the world at a terrible cost to herself. But she's still supposed to be pivotal to everything. It's just a matter of seeing how. But anyway. Anyway, I'm saying, I'm sort of skunked at the moment. The last thing I need is to be $200 in the hole for my bank account, and that just unravels everything. It was bad enough that I was already behind. On the upside, if they do clear the check for the landlord has the month's rent. But if they do clear it, that's going to skunk me by my bank account. So yeah, it's stupid. Mark, like I was telling everybody, that check that I had to stop payment on, I just checked my bank account online, and they let the check go through. Even though I called them up and told them to stop payment on this check, even though I filled out the paperwork and sent it in, it's registering right now as that they are processing it, that they've cleared it. And this is bad. I think I have a copy. I should have a copy of the paperwork here. I put it somewhere safe, so now I don't know where it is. Yeah, I do have a copy of it. Come to think of it, they gave me one. Keep this one for your records. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Stop payment order. Yep, got it right here. For you to keep. So I've got a paper record that this, this is not a good situation, no matter how it turns out. Yeah. Gonna be hanging out with Chester A. Bum. Change? Got any change? For those who don't know, there's a guy, the nostalgia critic. He has an alternate persona he calls Chester A. Bum. He does bum reviews of movies, and they're blindingly hilarious. The first time I saw a Chester A. Bum review was of Avatar, and he was talking about the Garfield Smurf people. And he did one on Harry Potter and Dumbledore. And he loves doing reviews of terrible movies because he gets to stay in the nice warm theater. But this is me. This is my life. Change? Can I change? Okay, but okay. Let's see. I gotta. Okay, I've got piles of crap to do. I'm gonna try and work on a comic for. I got one last comic left for Daniel Meyer. Might as well finish that up. Boot up the computer. I worry about myself sometimes. I swear I do. I called. I'm calling lots of people and getting no feedback. You know, I called my doctor, and I called the Arbors to see if I can arrange for a stay in their therapy clinic for my legs. I'm still waiting for a word back either from the doctor or from the Arbors. Got to decide, you know, how do I arrange a stay there, and whether my Medicaid will cover it. 'Cause sweet mama, I really, you know, it's all it consists of. All that I did the last time I was there, I spent 2 weeks lying in bed with my feet elevated, and somebody coming in, and and I was affected. You know, I went from I was completely bedridden. I was not to get up, and I was not to walk around. But under other circumstances, that would be called a vacation. You had somebody come in, bring you your dinner. Had somebody come in, haul away your pee bottle, and just check up and I was on a couple of antibiotics at the time because of an infection on my leg. You know, and they give you your pills, and that was it. But it was enough. Just being able to lie still. Just being able to lie still with your feet properly raised up, drained them down until they were almost normal sized again. I had big bags of skin hanging off my legs, but I could walk again properly. I could, And I got home and I said, "Oh, I'm going to wrap up my legs. I'm going to keep them this way, and I'm not going to let them get back to this way again." And guess what happens? Within 3 or 4 days, they had swelled back up to their original size. And now that and after all this time, they're bigger than ever. The only way I can keep that's the only treatment. Lying on your back with your feet in the air. I'd do it at home if I had somebody who could come in and check on me while I was lying there. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. It's preposterous. The amount of work you have to put in to not doing anything, Because you think, hey, it's easy. You just lie in bed and don't do nothing. Yeah, but then you have to get up. You have to eat. You have to get up. You have to. You got stuff you got to do. You got to work. You got all this other things you got to do. And well, you get the idea. And I wouldn't be able to go in for this if Medicaid didn't cover it. I feel bad about needing it. I feel bad about needing it, basically. Literally needing somebody to wait on you and care for you is physically speaking, I can barely walk. I literally can barely walk. It is a trek for me to get from the front of my trailer to the back. And I have to shuffle and waddle the entire way. Climbing in and out of bed requires Olympic efforts. And but part of me is going, this is so stupid. You should be able to lie in bed without needing medical assistance to do it. But I've got to do it. It's just about the only way that works. That is accessible to me. Now, anyway, let's move on. This is depressing. Talking about old man talking about how look at the swelling in my legs. The swelling in my legs, isn't it disgusting? Yeah. Doodly-doo-doo-doo-doo. Come on, computer, giddy up. Let's see. Commissions. Old Vic, here we go. I'm wondering when Daniel Myers is going to post his anniversary commission. It was for March 6th, but he never posted it. I guess he's, if I'm understanding what I've read right, he's out of town or roaming around the state or something. Okay, 6 frames. All right. There we go. I get a feeling though that Dan and his wife went and saw Captain Marvel, not Shazam, Captain Marvel, the Marvel movie, and he's of the opinion it was a fairly good movie. And he said, I didn't see any of that social justice stuff in it. And I'm like, well, that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't the movie itself. Even, I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the trailers, and I came to the conclusion it was basically just going to be, another Ant-Man. Not one of their greatest movies, but not a terrible one. Just, middle of the road, more or less. Popcorn burning fun, And I pointed this out, and I said the real problem wasn't the movie itself. The problem was the actress. The actress immediately jumped on the social justice feminist bandwagon and started flogging the movie as it's a triumph for women, the usual crap that they spew every time they make a feminist movie, an awful feminist movie. That slaps people in the face with all their progressive newspeak. And anybody that saw her performance, anybody that criticized her performance, she denounced as being misogynist. Anybody that said she looks, she called them bigots and hate mongers, and the usual routine. And a small surprise that people looked at her shenanigans, looked at the trailer, looked at her shenanigans, looked at the trailer again, and said, geez, another one, and kept away in droves. That doesn't make the people that criticized her trolls. It makes the people that just stayed away and criticized her just fed up with this nonsense. If 9 times out of 10 they forefront a movie, a terrible movie, with this kind of shenanigans anymore, who's to blame for the bad turnout? And I really think that I think that Dan and I were talking past each other, because well, it was still a really good movie, and I wasn't saying the movie was bad. I was saying, it's probably about fair to middling. Just another movie. It's not the big dramatic centerpiece that the flagpoles of the series are. The Avengers movies are, but it's not terrible either. Even the Ant-Man movies have been fun. But this woman, this actress, with this big old feminist chip on her shoulder, ruined it in advance for millions of moviegoers by turning it into a flagship for her personal causes. They did this with the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters was a feminist flop. The Ghostbusters was a feminist flop, and the actresses who worked in it, they started putting on the T-shirts and waving the buttons and banners and slogans, and attacking everybody that criticized their terrible performance as misogynist. Then they did this with the last Star Wars movie. No lie, it was a feminist flop. And the people and the directors and the producers and everything, and all the female actresses and the female staff were all jumping around. The Force is female on their T-shirts, and calling everybody that criticized their terrible movie misogynist. And then we come into this next movie, and people, are kind of apprehensive about it. They're looking at it and say, we're not so sure about this movie. And this Captain Marvel movie starts coming out, and the trailers start coming out, and people are saying, I don't know. And what do? They immediately go on the same attack. This woman starts waving her rainbow flag and marching up and down on the stage at every talk show, talking about how her character is the strongest character, and men just hate strong women. That usual crap. Look, we love, men love strong female characters. What we're sick of is weak, wet, whiny Nancys who can't take any criticism. And whose only resource, their idea of looking like a strong woman is bashing men. No, we're not particularly thrilled with those. You want to look at this resting bitch face woman that they've put in this role and tell her, we were watching strong female characters and cheering them on while you were still in Pampers, you pretentious brat. Sarah Connor, Sigourney Weaver. The Bionic Woman, Wonder Woman. It doesn't make you strong to be a bitch. You know? It's not a hard concept. They don't know what strong is. There are women out there with half their faces all burned off with acid because they taught other little girls how to read. Strong, independent women who don't need no man. Fuck off. I'm sorry if that word offends you, but there's no word base enough other than that to describe what I feel about these whining, pampered, spoiled Western brats. They think they're oppressed because somebody says they don't like their performance in a movie. Get out of there. Just get out. They don't know from strong. So sick of everything being a freaking feminist issue. I'm going to take a little shortcut here. It's the easiest way to keep these pages consistent. You'd be amazed at how much tracing people do with these things. I'm sorry, that language I used was uncalled for. But the sentiment I do not apologize for in the least. I'm so utterly, indescribably tired of it. Pampered, spoiled, useless people. And one guy put it, he said, "You're not oppressed if you hear something that offends you. You're not oppressed if you hear something that offends you. You're oppressed if when somebody tells you you can't say something because it might offend someone. And I'm like, spot on. You know, well, one of the ironies of this whole mess with this movie is that Captain Marvel, the character, she is not very popular. In the comics, she's become a brickbat for the progressive movers and shakers. You know, while the movies are going great guns, the Marvel comics have turned into a feminist cesspit. And she's basically nothing but another mouthpiece for these feminist activists. It is tiresome beyond belief. And and even before that, she was not a popular character. She has. Shall we say the character has issues. She's not a very nice person. She is also kind of a tool. So it's ironically fitting that the actress that plays her in the big blockbuster movie is, well, as much of a heinous bitch as her character is. Normally, in the comics. Now, I was looking through the Quorum website again. Bless you, Muslim. Say 5 Hail Marys and 3 Hello Dollies. But another one, yet another. I swear, there seems to be an entire segment of the human population dedicated to asking the same questions over and over again because they don't like the answer that they got the first time. Now, beg your pardon. They had these agitators asking, why doesn't Trump believe the environmentalists about global warming? I came up with an answer. I finally came up with a succinct answer that I think we ought to be using on a regular basis. And it would probably shut down 99% of the eco-activist nonsense. I wrote down, because they have never been right about anything they have predicted in the past 100 years. Yeah, and that's not an exaggeration. That's factual. I can pull up the article going back 100 years, all the predictions they made about the climate and about the weather and about the environment over the past 100 years. They have been wrong. Fatally wrong. Over and over again. I could show you news programs that proclaimed New York was supposed to be underwater by 2008. The ozone layer was supposed to be gone by 1990. We were supposed to have famines and malaria plagues because the climate change was supposed to ruin the arable farmland in the United States. We were supposed to have food riots in New York City by now. By 1980, actually. Due to climate change and overpopulation. Every prediction, they predicted that we would have no glaciers left. Guess what? We have exactly the exact same number of glaciers still existent today that were around when Al Gore was a baby. We still have the same amount of territory. The polar caps were supposed to be gone by now. And they are still there. Not only are they still there, they are larger than they have been. They're huge. They've grown over the past decade. The temperatures have been dropping worldwide for 15 years. Everything they have predicted, they have been wrong. It's time to pull out a gun and shoot Chicken Little. There's no use left for the son of a gun but a frying pan. Just simply, you don't have to go through hours and hours of digging out forms and charts and graphs and everything else showing that that their claims they're making are false. You just have to point out the obvious. They've never been right before. Never. About anything. Do we have environmental things that need... My good Lord. Look at the air in China. Look at the air. Look at the rivers in Haiti. Garbage just flowing. You can't even see the water for the trash. So yeah, the world has got a lot of cleanup that it needs to do. There are a lot of animals and environments that are endangered, genuinely endangered. There are a lot of there is a lot of pollution going on out there that needs to be cleaned up. There's a lot of things, but we are not going to solve any of these problems if we are off chasing, red herrings. It's that simple. You can't fix the problem if you're misidentifying the reasons for it. If you've got the wrong information on what the problem is, if you got the wrong information on the problem, if you think if it's just that simple. You can't fix if you can't fix the problem if you identify it. And if you get the cause wrong, if you get the solution wrong, if you get the reason for the problem wrong, you will get the solution wrong, which will cost everyone dearly. And basically, these environmentalists, most of these people aren't motivated by actual environmental concerns. They're motivated by socio-political fantasies. They're socialists. This is why they're called watermelon, green on the outside, red on the inside. Their real motivation is that it's just the same old crap repackaged. Here, let's wrap up socialism, in a package of love for Mommy Earth. You know, you can tell that it's because no matter what the environmental cause is, the blame always falls. Traditional values. This may come as a surprise to you, but we used to recognize that the most important contributors to environmental concerns were hunters. Most of the environmental law, most of the protections for the environment and for nature and for endangered species, attributable to Teddy Roosevelt. And that man was a big game hunter. Because unlike somebody who's sitting around in the middle of New York City, blubbering into a bowl of popcorn over Bambi's mama, he realized that he loved hunting, and if there weren't any animals left, there wasn't going to be nothing to hunt. So maybe we ought to take care of this crap. Farmers and hunters do more to take care of the environment than all the environmental activists combined. That's the God's honest truth. You can tell that most of it's all capitalism, blame industry, and two, search for ways to stick it to the West and to capitalism and to democracy and to all these other things that they hate so much, and and force us to foot the bill for whatever their solution is. You realize the Kyoto Protocols, the Kyoto Accords, would have put all the burden on the United States and similar countries to clean up the air, while it gave China a free pass. China, where you can cut blocks out of the air. The worst cesspits on the planet, the worst environmental cesspits on the planet are undemocratic, shall we put it, states like China. And they say you should have seen the mess that was left behind after the Soviet Union collapsed. Russia is still cleaning up. There's nothing for making a mess of things than a tyrannical state. Okay, let's see. Get this there. Maybe a little bit larger. Okay, coinkadinkly, if you have a commission or an order, or you just like to throw a penny in the hat, now would be a real good time to do it. Because my bank has flown up its own rear end again. It looks like my bank has flown up its own rear end again because I stopped payment on a check, and they just went, and according to my online banking account, they passed it on through, and so now I'm just about $200 in the hole, which means is that over the next month they're going to crank up hundreds of dollars in fees in no time flat, you know. So please put a penny in the old fart's hat. Ha ha ha. Canvas. Old Vic. Old Vic, Old Vic 69. Old Vic 69. I'm wondering when, like I was saying earlier, I'm wondering when Daniel Meyer's going to post up his anniversary pic on his website archive. It was commissioned. He commissioned it for me, and it's a rather spicy one. Let's see. We've been saying this. Look, as long as there's money and power to be made from being a scaremonger, people will continue to do it. Everything from 2-bit scams to conspiracies that go all the way up into governmental power. So it's the wickedness of human nature. You know what I think would change the world? You know what I think would really change the world? If somehow it suddenly became fashionable to have wrinkled shirts. Seriously, think about it. How many hours have people spent on ironing out their shirts and their pants and other trying to make it look all smooth and crap? All it would take, you know how the tie got started? You know how the tie got started? By a slob. Originally, the tie was, it was, the big cummerbund looking thing, the big tied scarf thing. It was originally a napkin that a king's servants tied around his neck to keep the food off his chest, because he was a slob. And naturally, all the people in the court started, tying these ascot things around their necks, and that evolved into the necktie. And it's one of the fine ironies of life is that you're considered finely dressed if you wear something that was originally meant to wipe food off your face. So if that's what one nobleman can do, if that's what one nobleman can do to fashion, imagine what would happen if people in power and authority, one of these people who are literally so rich and powerful that they couldn't give a rat's ass about anything, if they just started showing up in wrinkled clothes. You'd have professional wrinkling services within the week. Now that's how the torn shirt, the torn pants look and torn clothes look, got started in the 1980s. I don't, back in the big hair days. This happened shortly after Teen Wolf. Seriously, it happened after Teen Wolf came out, the movie. And there's this one scene where Wolf Boy is in a closet making out with this girl, and naturally he starts, he starts getting all hairy, and when the bell rings, she runs out of the closet to get to class on time. There are these 3 claw marks down the back of her denim jacket. And that's where the shredded clothing look got started. By the time 2 or 3 years had rolled by, there were kids going to my school who looked like they had been attacked by a weed eater. I'm not kidding you. These pants were bleached. They were stoned. They were beaten to death, and they looked like somebody had thrown the pants on a lawn and run them over with a lawnmower before washing them. Just slashes all up and down them. Nothing holding them together but string. And they were paying extra money to get clothes that looked like that before they even came off the rack. Funniest thing I ever saw was a Hot Topic t-shirt. Said, "You laugh at me because I'm different, I laugh at you because we are all the same." That t-shirt up on a hanger with about 1,000 of them stacked in boxes behind it. Yeah, being original, just like everybody else. That's why I like Macklemore's song "Thrift Shop." You have to watch the video. I don't appreciate some language in it, but I like to. He does a whole riff on how great it is. He just he wants a new look. He goes to the thrift shop. He goes to the dollar store. He goes to Goodwill. I'm gonna pop some tags. I got $20 in my pocket. Looking for a come up. This is freaking awesome. And he's thinking about how dumb it is to go out and spend $40 on a custom t-shirt that 5 other people in the club are wearing. Meanwhile, he's going to go down to the thrift shop downtown get what he calls a come up, something to updo his look. Out of your grandpa's old clothes. It's just, kudos to the guy for giving a little esteem booster to all the kids who have to wear secondhand clothing out there, You gotta wonder about people like that, what they call the sneakerheads. The people who spend hundreds of dollars on sneakers. Sneakers. Status symbol just for no reason. I don't know what to think about people like that. I don't know what to think about that. It's human nature to want to have the brightest plumage in the flock, Nothing unusual. But it's like, it's just the complete and utter lack and loss of common sense. Really, we all have an incredible lack of common sense when it comes to things we can't see from outside the goldfish bowl, as it were. If we were more self-aware, we would be embarrassed at some of the fantastically stupid things that we do as a given. They're just absolutely irrational. I've talked about this before. The way every other species, at least in the vertebrate class, every other species cares for its young, keeps its young close, sleeps nearby, has them sleep nearby, right up next to them when night falls to keep them safe. Except us. And this is a fairly recent development in Western civilization. It used to be that the entire family slept together in one room. In part to keep warm. But it also meant, security, safety. Mothers slept right next to their newborns. What do? What does our civilization do? We take women to the hospital, they deliver a baby, and the first thing they do, they grab the baby and wheel it away on a little cart. Stick it in a room full of a dozen other babies with a couple of overworked nurses. And then, eventually, they give the baby back to the mother, just as she's going out the door. The mother gets home, promptly puts the baby down in a crib, and then goes off to sleep at the other end of the house. The kid gets to the age of 2 or 3, and they're dumped off at the daycare center. They get to the age of 4 or 5, and boom, they're off to kindergarten. And from then on, every summer, they're shipped off to summer camp, they're shipped off to soccer camp, they're shipped off to band camp, they're shipped off to everywhere. As long as it's as far away from mom and dad as possible. I've never seen, you've never seen a species so dedicated to keeping their children as far away from themselves as they possibly can, and yet still trying to demand absolute control over them. If you're going to kick somebody out of the nest, don't be surprised when they fly away early. We spend the first 20 years of their life pushing them as far away from ourselves as we can get them, for as long as we possibly can, for as many hours out of the day as we can possibly manage, and then we spend the rest of our lives going, why don't they call us? Why don't they visit? Why don't they remember my birthday? Why don't they do this? You wanted to get rid of them. You made that clear. I love how parents also spend the first half of their, the first childhood, not now, honey, not now, honey. Mommy's talking. Mommy's busy. Mommy can't listen. Mommy can't do. Stop talking. We can't talk about that right now. Hush, hush, hush. Shh. You should be seen and not heard. Be quiet. And then the instant they turn 13, why don't they open up to me? How have you been doing? And the parents are suddenly in the kid's face. 24/7. What have you been doing? How have you been doing? How's school? How are your friends? Where are your friends? Have you got friends? Have you got a boyfriend? Have you got a girlfriend? Why don't you talk to me more? Why don't you sit down more? Why don't you come back and show me to your friends? Why don't you let me meet all your friends and neighbors and associates and let me get as far into your life as I possibly can? Until we're practically climbing in through the window at them. Really, what do we expect kids to say when they come home from school? So how was school today? It was great, Mom. We flew to Paris, France. We built a space shuttle in home economics, and we're flying it to the moon tomorrow. What do you think we did? We want to know all about their lives, but we do everything in our power to make sure that their lives are as far away from us personally as possible. It's idiotic. It would be enough an alien species would be going, is there something wrong with this particular breed? Is there some sort of genetic defect that makes them this stupid? Look around your average house. I mean, I've talked about how badly houses are designed. Houses, the most important thing you can have, a place to keep all your stuff. That's what a house is. It's a box to keep your stuff in, including yourself. We design houses as if we are always going to be 21 years old and physically fit as a high school athlete. There are usually multiple floors. It takes a great deal of energy and physical exercise to maintain and clean and repair, and everything is put someplace where it is incredibly difficult to reach. You ever seen somebody trying to fix? You ever seen a man trying to fix a foreign car? You will hear a language you never even imagined, and not just because he's reading the names of the parts. Because one of the things that drove my dad crazy, and you would have to practically dismantle the engine to change the oil filter or something. Parts that needed frequent maintenance would be almost inaccessible. Just ridiculous stuff like that. But a house, best description I could come up with a house is about 500 to 1,000 years of human technological development, duct taped in layers over itself, and then plastered over top of to make it look like the house Grandma remembers. Nothing is designed for utility or efficiency or just to be handy. But man, even enlightened homeowners aren't too bright about it. Like I said, my dad carpeted, 2 words, carpeted bathroom. 2 more words, carpeted kitchen. My mother had a carpeted kitchen and bathroom, and we got along just fine. You got along just fine. She had to clean it. Anyway, we, as people, as species, as a race, as a culture, we do things that are so irrational. And we barely even know why we do most of them. Whoa! Pardon. Everybody knows it's windy. Ha ha. Now, a bit ouchy, stiff. Everything hurts these days. Everything hurts all the time. I suppose it was mean of me, but this chair I got, the the chair I got, I finally, I have no real feasible way for me to have shipped it back for a refund. It really wasn't. It was an ordeal just to get it through the door in the first place and to get it assembled. But I got fed up. I just vindictive. I just wrote a review for it. Just basically described it. It's I think this chair I'm sitting in. Some time ago I bought. I've got 3 broken down chairs in here, office chairs, and well, 1, 2, yeah, well. Anyway, I needed a new office chair to sit in front of my computer, so I saved up my little pennies, and I found a chair that was rated found a chair on Amazon that was rated for £500, which is what I needed. I need every bit of it, believe me. And I bought it, and they brought it to me, and I assembled it, and it is, oh, it is so uncomfortable. It's padded with fake, it's got, the Naugahyde leather. It's padded and got nice arms and everything. And I think it's a factory reject. I really do. Because it seems that the bolt holes, the holes that the bolts go in, were somehow drilled in the wrong place. Because when it's fully assembled, first of all, the back does not come down flush with the seat. Where the back comes down, and there's it's supposed to be a notch that the back of the seat fits into, and it's not. It's about I'd say about 3 inches too high. The back is about 3 inches too high, and the holes are drilled so that when it's assembled, if you sit down in it, it feels like you are being tipped forward out of the chair. It's tilted forward at about a 20 degree angle. You don't see it very well. You don't see it at first because when you sit down in it, it's obvious. You literally feel like somebody is tipping you forward out of the seat. You have to. The only way to sit in this thing remotely comfortably is to sit on just about the front edge of the seat, and it is uncomfortable. It puts all the weight, instead of putting the weight on the butt and for the chair to hold it up, it slides you forward and puts all the weight on your knees and on your legs and on your feet. So you're constantly holding your own weight up with your legs to keep from sliding out of the front of the chair. And I've checked, and no, I didn't put anything together wrong. I didn't put anything in put any of the bolts in the wrong holes or anything. And the adjustment knob that's in the front, if you look on the underside of most office chairs, they have this round knob in front that's supposedly to adjust it, the angle of the seat or something. This one doesn't do anything. I know, I cranked on that thing for 10 minutes, just crank, nothing. And then I cranked it the other way, crank, nothing. It's entirely cosmetic. I think what happened is that this seat, I have two possible theories, is that this seat is made up of parts from two different ones by mistake, or that it's a factory defect, that the machines were off by like a couple of inches and drilled the assembly holes in the wrong place. So they decided to take all the rejects and chuck them out through Amazon.com. And that's what I put down in the review. I described it completely. Major disappointment, 1 star. When you are my age and in my physical condition, there is nothing more important than comfortable furniture. Getting hold of it, that's the trick. Because you can't exactly run off to just hop in the van and just zip on down to the store and try out different chairs until you find a real nice one. No, not really back then, and especially not now when you can barely move. That is just, ugh. Let's see, what was a company? I don't even know if it had a name brand or anything. It's just one of those. It's a chair. It's on Amazon. It's rated for 500 pounds. Buy it. So, and surprise, here I am, sitting. Surely, get some serious pain going on your tailbone. when you have an unusual body type, let's say when you have an atypical body type, I mean, you can find stuff that's built for huge, great big, huge fat people. And I'm basically a great big, huge fat person. But if you're a great big, huge fat person who's also sort of deformed, as in my case, I have great big, huge, horrible, swollen legs. That my legs are bigger, my legs together are bigger around than my waist, to give you an idea. Finding just being comfortable is so difficult and so rare. It's half the reason I'm so tired all the time. It hurts to get in bed. It hurts to get out of bed. It hurts to sit up. It hurts to stand. It hurts to stand up. It hurts to sit down. Not horrible, soul-racking agony and pain. It's just constant ache. Just constant ache of varying intensity. And, well, there you go. That's it. There's no real way to convey what it's like to get older to somebody who's young. They can maybe get a glimpse of it, get an idea of it. I know I could when I was younger. I get sort of a general idea. But and at the back of your mind, you're thinking you're not going to be tired all the time. You're not going to be weak and sick all the time. You don't realize what it means to be like this 24/7. You know what it's like to be tired, or to have, you're young, you know what it's like to have aching feet or hurting knees. You've gone through aches and pains and being tired and being sick and but you can't fathom what it's like to be that way 24 hours a day. To never have a respite from it. To never have a moment when you're full of energy ever again. And I know I've got friends here that are my age and older who are in far better shape, and they're doing great. And you ask Daniel Meyer, he's oh, he groused and griped and groaned and grumped and groaned the entire way because he was being forced to lose weight by his insurance company, and their demands were literally physically unreasonable for a man his age and of his physical condition. It's just they expected him to have the body of a 20-year-old. And I don't know if he's actually managed to meet the markers that they demanded or not. But he is going great guns. He has lost, I don't know how much weight. He's gained a lot of muscle. He's doing much better physically. But I suspect if you ask him, there are some aches and pains that never seem to go away. My warranty expired about 10 years too early. And it's compounded by the fact of my legs. Up to about the age of 35, I could walk everywhere. Even I weighed 400 pounds. I would still walk everywhere I could. And then my legs started swelling and swelling and swelling, and now I can't walk. And now it's a theatrical effort to get down my own front steps. It's half the reason my house is full of trash bags right now. And I'm not literally, it's just about half full of trash because I can't get it down the steps. And the people that I used to, depend on to help me get it down the steps, they're gone. And I've been trying to find somebody else to step in for them and help me out. Not much luck of late. And in fact, with the money shenanigans going on, I don't have any money to pay them to do it either. I'm going to have to end up hiring some professional crew to come in here and fork over $100 just to haul all the trash out. Because I can't do it myself. Or I could, but I'd kill myself doing it, most likely. Give myself a heart attack. Or break my neck falling down the stairs, or trip and rip open one of my legs, tear open, and just the gruesome things that can happen to you. Just we'll leave it to your imagination. Now, as always, trouble focusing. Come on. It seems to be raining outside. The wind's been blowing real hard all day. Wind's been blowing real hard. This is one of the joys of living in a trailer is you're sitting in the house and the wind blows and you hear something flap loose. You're like, what was it this time? The siding, the roof, the neighbor's car, what? Okay. Let's see, who have we got in here? Who have we got in here today? We've got 5 people in here today. We've got Mark Harris, dun dun dun. We've got Ben Shakar, dun 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 dun. We've got Lord Harlea. Wait, here, let me just. Okay, who have we got in here? We've got Mark Harris. We've got Lord Harlea. We've got Ben Shakar. And last but not least, in the names that I can see on here, Mr. Cartoon Critic. We have five people in the audience. Yeah. How many of you remember that? How many of you remember that from Sesame Street? That was that was my introduction to funk. I'm not kidding you, man. Growing up watching, each they had different animations of that pinball machine for each number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Do 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 do. And you remember those? I forget how it went, but it always ended with the guy carrying pastries. 12 birthday cakes, and then he'd trip and fall and land in whatever he was carrying. And that's the number. But memories. We used to live in one neighborhood. We picked up like 3 or 4 different PBS channels for some reason. And one day I sat down, I watched, well, literally switched channels and watched Sesame Street on one channel. Then I watched the same episode of Sesame Street on the next channel. Then I watched the same episode of Sesame Street on the next channel. And I'm like, jackpot! Haven't seen anything like that in years, though. Oh, yeah, I love this. So, what kind of debt am I in today? Yeah, that sounds about right. And what does my bank account look like? Yeah, that sounds about right, too.
Heart in your general direction. Your mother was a huckster, and your father king of elderberry.
Currently studying up so you know what kind of magical sun-based WMD Celeste could drop on the Caribou City. Oh yeah, let me guess. You stumbled across that fan fiction where the caribous basically conquer and rape their way across Equestria, right? Sweet merciful crap. That was the most misogynist. Where are all these feminist rights, women's rights people? When this kind of crap gets hits the fan, huh? This guy writes a story that's just vile and depraved and disgustingly obscenely sexist and just and nobody cares. If the world was just, the feminazis would be climbing up this guy's rear end with a running chainsaw, and I'd be applauding them. I've seen other people that have read it. I'm not the only one horrified and disgusted with this. But there was one guy that wrote a re-edited version of the story where basically the caribou tried to use their brainwashing rape magic to take over Equestria, and they got ruffle stomped. It was demonstrated quite realistically what would happen to the caribou that tried to invade Equestria. Their Gary Sue sex god leader got ground into mulch by Celestia. So it was darn hilarious because that one scene where the caribou soldiers were being chased through the streets of Canterlot by Princess Luna and her pet Shoggoth. She said, she's riding on his back, cackling like a maniac, screaming, come back! Mr. Snuggles just wants to hug your brains!" Oh yeah. I pulled the fanfic of crapsack stories down because it's just okay. I'll be honest with you. They are just, even though they were supposed to be parody, in and of themselves, they were kind of stories. Too graphic, too drastic, and just too nasty. Really don't know what to think sometimes of people. I know there are people out there like that, but what's sad is that the people that tolerate them. This guy comes out with this nasty, disgusting, sick story, and in a sane world, uh, the community should have fallen on him like the wrath of an angry god. No, no. It's what the rousing cry of indifference disappointed me deeply in the people in that community. It really did. Because somebody who sits around festering in fantasies like that of rape and child molestation and horrifying things like that, you're just picturing this skis freak, basement dweller, and you're just wondering when he's going to decide that real life role play would be loads of fun too. You see somebody who tortures small animals for fun, and people will point out, that's a warning sign of a potential serial killer. You see somebody that writes diseased stuff like that, and everybody's, oh well, we need to tolerate him because free speech and blah 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 blah. That's not that's a warning sign, people. In blazing neon floating over the guy's head, this guy is a dangerous freak. When you have these depraved behaviors, but you don't even have the cognitive sense. You don't even have the ethical sense to not march them up and down Main Street for everybody to view. That's like the last warning sign before they cross over from fantasizing to reenacting. It's one of the things that keeps plaguing fandoms, regardless of what the fandom is about. You get a great number of people who sign on who have no concept of boundaries. Forget morals. Morals and ethics. They don't even have a concept of boundaries, and they get angry if you suggest that they should get some. Do you follow what I'm saying here? They joke about these otaku fanboys that show up at conventions and they smell like they haven't bathed in years. That's just an example of what I'm talking about. They have no sense of personal boundary, no self-awareness, no realization that yes, their shit does stink. And in fact, there are a lot of people that sign up for these conventions, join up for these clubs, and they think that that's a license to behave as if they have no boundaries. Brain damage 101. Let's be fair. If we looked at our culture, our culture has no. There's nothing new under the sun. Our culture has all the same. Our culture 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years had the same depravities, weirdness, sickness, illness, sin, and evil. All the problems that we have today. It's just that we personally have grown up, gotten a little older, and realized, what really is over the backyard fence. And we think that we mistake our own maturation, our own growing awareness of how broken the world is, for proof that the world is rapidly declining. No, we've already gotten there. We've been there for decades. We've been there for centuries. We could, various societies and civilizations have risen and fallen, and are rising and falling right now. Venezuela, anyone? And arguably, look at the Soviet Union. Look at what happened to the countries there, and they are arguably still clawing their way back up out of the dark. There will come an end time, but let's not be too eager to forecast it. Let's not make the same mistake as left-wing environmentalists do, and mistake their own little localized prejudices for worldwide trends. Here's a fact for you. Here's a fact for you. In 1990, what was it? 1990. I believe it was like 1995. The world's population was 5.3 billion people. There was 1.9 million people living in abject poverty at that time. Out of 5.3 billion. Keep track of those numbers. Now, today, we have a population of 7.6 billion people. And you know how many people we have living in abject poverty? 0.7 million. Not only the percentage of people living in poverty, but the absolute numbers of people living in poverty have dropped, even as our population worldwide has increased by about 2 or 3 billion. Think about by about 2 billion. Think about that. From 1.9 to 0.7. Nearly 1 million people lifted, lifted up out of poverty, out of abject poverty. I can list you dozens of statistics, trends, things. Some of them in short term, some of them in very long term, are getting better. People who try to forecast the end of the world should have the rulers they're using slapped out of their hands and told to sit down and be still, because all they're doing is generating strife and unhappiness where it does no benefit. The end times will come, but they will come, one, when nobody expects them. And quite frankly, there's too many people around sitting around sucking a lemon, expecting the world to end tomorrow, or sitting up on their rooftops, clutching their leaflets and waiting for Jesus to sweep down in his airplane and carry them all away. There is the best of times and worst of times. And the worst of times is yet to come. Compare the life in an average city today compared to 200 years ago. The main difference between then and now is that we have worldwide communication and we are more aware of horrible things happening all over the world. You didn't hear about things happening you didn't sit in America 100 years ago and hear about horrible things happening on the streets of you know, London or France or Hong Kong. And when you heard of the things that were, things that had been going on for thousands of years, and you heard about them in the news, it was a big shock to imagine that the world was like that. Like I said, as a nation, we're mistaking our own ability to observe for changes in what we're observing. When we're little children, the world is a wonderful, safe, and happy place. If we're fortunate and we have good, loving parents and decent home environment. We don't know from rich or poor we don't know about wars. We don't know about violence and crime and murder and all the other horrible things that are going on in the world. We don't know about what's happening outside of our own front yard. And so we think the world is we have a perspective of the world as a fairly decent place. But then we grow up and we start becoming more aware. And that's, teenage cynicism. And suddenly we're tall enough to see over the backyard fence and see the garbage in the back alley. And, oh, we've been lied to. We thought the world was a wonderful, safe, loving place. And then they go off and listen to My Chemical Romance and hang around the Hot Topic store all afternoon. And tell each other how much more enlightened they are than their stupid, unenlightened parents. We know what the world's really like. Sure you do, Snacky. Unfortunately, far too many people never grow out of the stage where they find out that Santa Claus is dead and the Easter Bunny doesn't exist. And I'm talking about both whether you're talking secularly or religiously. I think one of the things, I got to question the obsession that many Christians seem to have with the end times. If you met somebody who was obsessed 24/7 with their own death, you'd question their stability mentally and their general mental health. You meet people who are obsessed 24/7 with the death of the entire world in an apocalypse, and who spend all their time talking about prophecies of the end of the world. I'm not talking about people who have studied, and studied to be aware of these things, you know. But I'm talking to people about who obsess about it, hold seminars on it, and every time something happens in the news, oh, it's a sign of the end times. Why aren't we wondering about these people? Why aren't we asking questions? Are these people really on an even keel? And to what good is it? Oh, we're all gonna die. Somebody's coming. Somebody's coming. Oh, might as well give up now. Yeah. Well, I mean, really, come on. Is that what we're intended to do? We're meant to teach the whole Bible, that God, in the beginning, God created the world, and someday, at the end of times, He will wrap the world up and start up a whole new creation. But we're fixated on doomsaying. This is what I've said for years. I've come, this is just me speaking now. I'm no theologian. I'm no biblical expert. I'm no spiritual guide. I'm no spiritual leader. I'm no good Christian. I'm a terrible Christian example. Well, this is the opinion that I don't think that I'm of the niggling suspicion. I'm the suspicion that okay, first of all, the Bible says that not even Jesus knows what time and day He's going to return. And I believe first of all, I believe the reason for that is because of free will. God gave humanity free will, and I think God, even though He knows how things are overall going to turn out, that He gave man free will so that He, the Almighty, could step back and say, okay, let's see what happens. To some degree. I also think that the time of Christ's return is dependent upon how human beings, as free-willed individuals, behave and how they act and what they do. That the doomsday clock is not a clock, but it's more like a barometer. It's measuring for when the time and the conditions are right. And that there have been times when we've been closer to the end times, and sometimes when they have been further away. And that's the reason nobody knows the exact time or date, because there is no exact time or date. That's just my, armchair musings. It's not, nothing really scriptural to base it off of. But just my own meandering thoughts. But as far as we're concerned, we don't know when Jesus is going to return. We don't know when the end times are coming. We don't know, we don't know how good or how bad things are going to get. You ask somebody you go back to 1938 and ask a Jew or a Christian living in Nazi Germany if the end times had come, they'd be convinced that it was. And they'd be convinced that Hitler was the Antichrist. And with pretty darn good reason. All things considered. My dad liked to say that the reason that Hitler tried to take the role of the Antichrist, but it didn't happen because it wasn't the right time. And I think the reason it wasn't the right time is because the rest of the world got up off its haunches and said, no, we will not let this happen. That's why it wasn't the right time yet, because people were still there were still millions of people who loved the Lord and who feared God and who in general believed in good and evil, right and wrong, and decided they were going to stop this man. There will come a day when there's nobody left to stop people like that. And that's when the end times will be. One of the things they talk about the end times in the Bible is I've noticed that the descriptives they use are not of time running out, but of the turning of the seasons, uh, of the conditions being right. But that says to me more that you know that you know that the end times are going to be when the conditions for it are right, not when the calendar date is. Every generation has sworn up and down that their age was the last age. And when your whole world is a village and your village is burning down, yeah, that's the end of the world for you. It can sort of bias your perspective. Let's see, what was I looking for? Oh, yes. I was looking at the cogling. No, I wasn't looking for that. What was I looking for? I was looking for something, but then I lost it. Yes. Old Vic. I'm probably completely wrong about everything I've said. I'll say that much. Do your own Bible reading and your own Bible studying. But, I've got my suspicions, and that's all I've said. Maybe I'm wrong for getting upset at people for dwelling on the end times so much. Maybe it's something we should be teaching 24/7. I don't know. I can easily be wrong about everything. I'm very good at being wrong about things. Oh, my feet hurt. Everything hurts anyway. Really need to do some of my own comic strips. Got a few ideas for comic strips, but I hate them. I'm wondering how many days I could get away with just drawing girls in bikinis. Ouch. You saw in the big news, the big scandal has been discovered that one of the actresses from Full House was apparently caught trying to. I'm not sure exactly how it works. She basically bribed somebody to change her kid's SAT scores so he could get into college or something. Or to change the. I forget exactly what how the shenanigans went down. And apparently, there's an entire network of people that have been doing it. And my first thought is, okay, so you've discovered that rich people bribe colleges to get their kids in when they don't deserve to. Imagine that! Yeah. Well, you have a good night, Eric. Try to sleep up, and if you think of it, this is what I'm throwing out there. Please, if you could spare a buck, toss a dollar. Go by my website, toss $1 in the hat. Keep this fool alive, because my bank is run by people that I just don't understand. I haven't drawn AOC as a horse. AOC. What is her name? Ortana Cortez. I've heard people call her Occasional Cortex. I think that joke's a little too subtle for some people, though. She's a horrible woman. Do you realize what kind of a horrible person you'd have to be she's basically living in the laps of luxury and living off the fat lands, and she's advocating a system that will drive this society into ruination and poverty. And she's gotten into power by selling it to gullible children. I'm sorry, if you believe in socialism, you are not an adult. At her last public appearance, she was wearing clothes. Her earrings alone were several $100s. And she's bullshitting people about socialism. She didn't pay for those earrings herself. I guarantee you. She was wearing tens of thousands of dollars in taxpayer money in just that one outfit. She's a horrible woman. She's a terrible evil woman. And I don't care how nice you can be as nice and pleasant and likable as and just be as evil and as you can imagine. You can imagine yourself to be compassionate and be unfathomably evil. Whether you're good or evil is not a matter of what you think of yourself. It's not a matter of what you feel about others. It's a matter of what you do. Some of the most profoundly evil things men have ever done have been done with a smile on their face and a song in their hearts. people have walked around this earth imagining themselves to be good and not knowing how wicked they are. That's a conviction, until they've had to face the conviction of God, the conviction of the Holy Spirit, and just have their whole worldview of themselves and everything around just destroyed. Imagine what the Apostle Paul went through. Up until his conversion, he thought that he was battling heretics. He thought that he was destroying heretics. And then to have God Almighty stop him in the road to Damascus. Why are you persecuting me? Why do you persecute my children? And that had to be the most shattering thing in the universe. To realize you had just done a horrible evil to the God you thought you'd loved. That's enough to put me down on my face before God right now. Knowing that the sins I commit daily are grievous to Him. That I imagine myself to be a good person, and realizing that no, I'm not. Jesus, forgive me and have mercy on me, a sinner. For I know what wickedness I do. And I know what wickedness I will, that I will come tomorrow, I will transgress again. Sometimes you ask for forgiveness out of fear, other times you ask it out of grief. demands the world stop using airplanes. You heard this? The state of California is pushing through legislation that will outlaw 18 wheelers, diesel trucks in California. It's amazing. I've never seen, I mean, every time I've seen it happen, it's still a surprise. An entire civilization tries to commit suicide. Look, we watched it happen. I've lived long enough. I've seen the collapse of the Soviet Union. You understand what I'm saying? I saw something that most people were convinced would last for hundreds of years, if not forever. They're people that basically lived with the idea that there was always going to be a Soviet Union, the USA and the USSR, opposite sides, for the rest of forever. And then the Soviet Union imploded under its own weight. If we'd have taken a moment to think, we would have realized it was inevitable. Totalitarian states do not hold up. Socialist and communist states, especially, they just can't work. I'm wondering when China's finally going to fold its cards in. Because no matter how much capitalism they layer on the top, there's still a tyrannical communist state. And the only thing keeping them going is American dollars right now. Nixon earned himself so much condemnation for what he did. Gave them most favored trade nation. We should have told them to sink or swim. And then sat there and watched while they sank. That would have spelled the end of Chinese communism. It would have spared the entire world. It would have spared the entire world so much. But no. So now we've had a communist dictatorship basically thriving and surviving because it sucks the blood of our industry. But it can't go on forever. Soviet Union couldn't. This can't either. And now we got to, I've seen the collapse of the Soviet Union. I've seen the Berlin Wall fall. Not personally, not in person, but I lived through that time. I watched the massacre of Tiananmen Square on TV. May God shame us all for forgetting that. We should have held the Chinese. This was the time to hold the Chinese feet to the fire. And we did not, because we were too greedy and too desperate to sell our crap to a few million Chinese. I've seen, I saw the execution of Ceausescu. I have seen Saddam Hussein executed. I lived through that time. I lived through the time where they tracked down and exterminated Osama bin Laden. I've watched Greece, and everything I've ever forecasted about the consequences of the banking system and the fiat currency and socialist corruption. Boom. Congratulations. I'll just point to Greece. And now I've seen it happen again in Venezuela. Totalitarian state collapsing like an imploding neutron star. I'm not happy for it because there are people down there that are suffering unbelievably because of the wickedness of their leaders. Those unmitigated bastards are out there burning trucks full of relief and foreign aid, rather than let the civilians get it. The soldiers are burning in the street, and people are picking through garbage, eating, to find food to eat. And this wretched evil woman, this whatever her name is, occasional cortex AOC, she wants to bring that here. They've been trying to slide it under the door for years. A little bit of welfare state here, a little bit of social security system there, a little bit of government handouts and aid programs over there, until we reached a point where literally we could liquidate everything that everybody over every house, we could liquidate the wealth of every household making 50,000 or more, and it would not pay for an entire years of entitlements that our government hand out. But she wants to give it the bum's rush, and turn us into a socialist state, because this college bimbo, she's just a brainless college bimbo. Uh, Wants to live in the fairy tale Candyland of socialism. Even as she's prancing around uh, in taxpayer funded gear, she has a wardrobe that would impoverish a small town. She's a stupid child who thinks that there's always going to be more in the cookie jar. And our press and the other traitors in our country are doing everything in her power to make her vision happen. Pardon. I'm not quite tired yet, but I'm getting there. I'm starting to feel the edge of it. I really got to get more images for that slideshow. I'm getting really tired of seeing the same images over and over. I wonder if you can get a DVD with animated GIFs, a few thousand of them, or something like that. I don't know. I used to try and run this fancy screensaver I found that would, randomize and do all sorts of cool stuff, but it bogged down my system. Come on. trying to think and nothing's happening. I think I've reached the point where I'm awake, but the hamster at the helm in my little dog. Just picture a little hamster in a work helmet running the control panel behind my forehead, and you got a picture. He's down for the count. Okay, I wanted to spend more time. I wanted to do a lot of things, but I'm not going to get done. If you must fall, fall forward. Lord Hylia, which ones were yours? Lord Hylia, which ones were yours again? Your commissions. Let me pull up the let's see here. Let's see, commissions. Categories, commissions. Here we go. That's no help. Where is it? What? I just lost it. Lightningly mad. Okay, let's see here. Lightningly mad. Lightningly. Huh. Ow, fraggot. Lightningly mad. Okay, we got one from Jonathan Coor. I've got one from Jonathan Coor. Jonathan Kruger. Lightningly mad. No. Commissions. Oh, hold on. Ha. Here we go. Lord Hylia. Order the 3 full color commission. The commission is quest requesting going to an item shop. Oh dear. Oh my. Thank you for reminding me, Lord Hylia. Crap. Let's see. Let's see. Do I have a separate folder for Lord Hylia's commissions? Commissions. No, I do not have a folder for Lord Hylia. I haven't even got sketches yet. I am sorry. I've got another one here. It's supposed to be of Fennec and Loctara. I haven't get that one yet. Dang. I've only got the roughest sketches. Oh my. I'll get cracking on those. I'll try to get cracking on those and get you at least some preliminary sketches. Crud. let's see. Okay, you already got the Rakona Starfighter. And, still getting an X-Wing pilot. And, oh my. Stop that. Stop it. What is this? New things popping up in the windows on the side. Lord Hiley is Jonathan Kruger. Oh, great. I need to... Okay, fudge. I need to make a new folder here. Kruger. Leah. Kruger Hylia. There we go. Got a new folder there. Okay, you had one of was this I think you had one of Fennec and Lactara. You had one that you wanted of Fennec and Lactara, is that correct? This is a very rough sketch. It's just general poses right now. It's of note that Lactara is also, Rachel of the story. As an orc, she is buff, even for an orc. For a female orc, anyway. You've seen the World of Warcraft art. The females, there tends to be a rather certain and obvious sexual dimorphism, even among the more monstrous races. But she's much more broad-shouldered and heavy built than the average orcish female. Male orcs would think she was exceptionally hot. She has shoulders that goes on for days. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, that's Mark Harris then. Okay then. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Lord. I was getting confused. That's Mark Harris's drawing. What fudge? Okay. I think about the time I die at the age of 100, I'll have completed my current backlog. I'll be 98 and I'll be drawing the first new strip and all this. I finally got a moment to update my comic strip. And I'll just keel over on the keyboard. Yeah. Crap. Fennec is the character who was originally regent, and Lactara was originally the villain known as Hellhound, aka Bitch. She preferred to be called Bitch, but the PRT labeled her Hellhound because the name she chose wasn't family friendly, like she cared. I'll try and get these. I'll try and get at least some preliminary sketches done for you and get them to you and mail them to you. But I do apologize. There's no excuse for this. There's no excuse for how far I've fallen behind in everything. You can only plead tired and sick so much, you know. You know, you have to face up and do what you're responsible. You know, I'm just going to have to knuckle down. I am sorry, but we'll do what I can. How well and readily the crew would go through the Azan ul Gaun dungeon and wreck face. I have no idea what that means. That's kind of the question, though, is that if these guys, if I were to live long enough to write this story and finish it, and move them on to where they actually do go to Azeroth, are they really going to stand out? The thing that makes them so potent and powerful in the world of Worm is that they are an out of they, for one thing, they're an out of context problem for everybody. Their powers work in they have their powers are more versatile. They work in ways that they have no category for. They have every one of them is technically a grab bag cape, which is what they call a cape who has a handful of seemingly unrelated powers, which is very unusual. But that's all of them. Every one of them has unusual gifts and abilities, and some of them have abilities that are supposed to be technically impossible. Now, take them, take them to Azeroth. Most of what they have, most of their abilities and skills are bog standard. It's not just one archer with, they have tens of thousands of hunters with magic, with magic archery skills on both sides of the battlefield. They have, 10 millions of orc huntresses. They have paladins out the wing-wong. They've, they're just going to be more, on that scale. Are they really going to be heroes, or are they just going to be cannon fodder? Or are they going to, in their time in Brockton Bay, are they going to develop something that puts them over the top when it comes to facing the perils of Azeroth? That's one of the fundamental things about. I saw the first couple of episodes of Overlord, that anime. Like it, yeah. I saw the two cross-dressing elf twins, and I was like, okay, yeah, yet another anime written by somebody with really serious issues. But it's notable. The good guys. In that first episode, the good guys fight like heroes. The bad guys fights like an army. Oh, I know, Lord Hylia. Violence and gore and weird, kinky, freaky crap. Come on, get it. Just bleh, get out of my face with it. Ugh. Now I do like the anime. Uh, that time when it's called in English. That time when I got transformed into reincarnated as a slime. This salaryman otaku gets reincarnated into a fantasy world as a slime. Well, what you or I would call a jelly, little round ball of gelatin. Slime reincarnation. It's just I love it. It's so peppy. It's so peppy and fun and lighthearted and funny and optimistic. He starts out as this little ball of jelly, and even before he leaves the first cave, he's insanely overpowered, and he becomes the ruler of a tribe of goblins, and he becomes their leader, and he starts improving their lives. I thought it was funny is that in the first episode, his what happens is that he was like I said, he was a salaryman. Taco, he didn't have very many friends. He had two friends he was walking home from work with, and they were just talking about, oh, maybe I should come to a party just once. And a mugger attacks them, and he steps in to protect his friends and protect the girl, and he gets stabbed. And he knows that and he's dying there, and he tells his best friend, take good care of her because I figured out you two are getting together, and because he figured out that that those two had developed a crush, and that they had been but anyway, a little drama there, and he says also erase my browsing history. And he goes there. And at the end of that episode, they cut back to the guy's apartment in Japan, and his friend is performing lecturing, cleaning the place up for his dead friend. He's got tears running down his face. You see him pick up the guy's computer, walk into the bathroom, and drop it into a bathtub full of water to destroy his browsing. Yeah, this is yeah yeah. I'll be honest, you're right. He didn't ask for their money. He didn't do anything. He just charged them with a knife, and you're like, what the heck? It's not the craziest thing that happened out there. You know. But yeah. What's that other anime? Fanboy. He dies in a really stupid fashion. And what it is, he's walking down the road from his house to I forget where, and he looks up and he thinks he sees a vehicle about to hit a girl. He freaks, he jumps, he pushes her out of the way, and then he dies. And he wakes up in the afterlife. He thinks that he's done one last heroic deed. It turns out that the vehicle he saw out of the corner of his eye was a tractor moving at about 2 miles an hour. And he scared himself so bad that he died of a heart attack. I haven't gotten that far, Mark Harris. Yeah, Konosuba. Man, that is a bitterly cynical. That's like the opposite of slime reincarnation. It's just bitterly cynical, and nothing goes right for the guy. And like even though he's obnoxious, you feel so sorry for him because absolutely anything that could go wrong has gone wrong for him, and nothing pans out. Yeah. He dies in the most humiliating manner possible. He gets stuck with help in the form of a quote unquote goddess who is absolutely useless. It's like the whole universe is standing over him with a baseball bat labeled "A loser is you" and just beating him over the head. I don't know ReZero. I don't know from ReZero. I'm still waiting for the next season of My Hero Academia. I love that. It's very optimistic. Again, very optimistic, very positive outlook on the idea of being heroes. The idea of a world where it's literally illegal, where 80% of the population has some sort of paranormal ability, but it is illegal at least in Japan to use it in public. You can be fined or even arrested for using your power without a license. I'm like, yeah. Japan, join the free world. But I read one thing recently. It's a work in progress. It's a fan fiction where it's a crossover between My Hero Academia and The Tick. It seems the Tick is led by Destiny to come to Japan because he senses that there's a young hero destined for greatness. And even before the protagonist gets his all for the one for all power, even before he gets his quirk, the Tick makes him his sidekick, sort of like he did with Arthur. It is absolutely hysterical to read. Well, now that's a little different. The superhero registration thing is what you mean, but each of them has different rules to it, and it's always stupid, and I hate the trope. We've seen what happens. Look, they tried it with the Mutant Registration Act, and then they did the Superhero Registration Act, and both versions were absolutely hated by the Marvel fans because it basically consisted of the governments of the world violating the American government violating the Constitution to lock people up who literally went out every day and saved the world. It was stupid. It was corrupt, and the people, even the people that, even the people that were trying to make it sound like a great idea, managed to make it obviously horrible. Now, the Incredibles, their problem is that in the Incredibles, they got sued. It's implied that the superheroes generally work for the government. And if you couldn't see the problem coming from a mile away, just from that, I mean, think about it. It would be easy enough to, in the Incredibles, it's obvious that the government used the carrot rather than the stick to keep superheroes in line. Offered them all sorts of bennies, super vehicles, equipment, legal protection. And unfortunately, with the government being responsible for everything, that turned around and bit them in the ass when one entitled idiot tried to commit suicide and then sued the people that saved his life. Better people than me have spelled it out, but the problem with the idea of a superhero registration, it boils down to, in practice, a superhero registration act or a mutant registration act or whatever you want to call it boils down to becoming a bill of attainder. Now, for those of you who don't study constitutional law all that much, a bill of attainder is something that's deliberately prohibited in the Constitution. It was a practice of the British government and other corrupt governments at the time. If they didn't like a particular group, they would pass a law against them and force them to buy a license to exist. And that was called a bill of attainder. Look it up. Requiring people with paranormal abilities to register with the government and to require the government's permission simply to exercise what is for them a biological function is a bill of attainder, and that's just for starters. It's immoral, unethical, and unconstitutional. And legal students just have ruffle stomped the whole Civil War argument from Marvel that excuses it. No. Oh yeah, obviously the laws were stupid. I'm sorry. In a world with superheroes running around, they would already have something. We already have laws for such circumstances. They're called the Good Samaritan laws. If you are acting in good faith to try and save somebody's life, the law protects you. The Good Samaritan laws, the Greater Good clause, basically, the Greater Good clause is basically you can't charge somebody with vandalism for breaking a window if they're doing it to save somebody who's dying inside a car. That's just a general description. We already have those laws on the books, and in a world with superheroes, those things would be spelled out in 8-foot-high neon letters. That people acting in a heroic aspect would be protected from spurious and trivial harassment and lawsuits, because they are acting in the benefit of society as a whole. I watched The Incredibles 2. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I expected it was going to be another girl power in-your-face thing. It's still hypocritical. It's still a little hypocritical. In fact, but I'll give them points, is that Elastigirl admits, this is kind of hypocritical of me. I was getting all over my husband for going off to be a superhero, and here I am doing the same thing. And I'm like, thank you for admitting that. But one of the things is that it showed the Incredibles stopping the Underminer. And yet the first thing that the press does is that they blame the Incredibles for the Underminer's rampage. And you'd have to be dumber than a brick to think that. But yeah, people really are that dumb. Oh, definitely the suit should have been thrown out. Yeah. Anyway, ow, that was unpleasant. Now, what can you do? What can you say? But it's a terrible concept. Uh, people that come up with the idea, they just don't know what superheroes are. The whole point of a superhero is the idea of that the whole idea of a superhero is somebody who is acting on behalf of society when government fails. If you really want to stretch the argument. Just a moment. There we go. A superhero is somebody who's given, they're generally given extraordinary abilities, and they feel an obligation to use them. But generally speaking, a superhero is somebody who acts when the normal authorities cannot or will not. That's a generalization, but it sort of covers it. Covers all the examples. Stupid thing. I think the heater's about to kick it. But, when Superman dives down and catches a falling plane, it's because there's nobody else who can do it. The proper authorities can't rescue a falling plane. The proper authorities can't always get to the person trapped at the top of a burning building. The idea of superheroism is highly libertarian and individualistic. So the idea is that you have the ability to act. You should be free to act. And maybe you even have an obligation to act. That you should not need permission to act in a manner designed to defend yourself, your loved ones, your neighbors, or your community. As another author put it, I forget the name of the author, but he's writing a fan fiction. It's called Stepping on Worm. Basically the idea is that the main character is a hardcore power gamer. He arrives in, and the idea is that he arrives in the Wormverse, and using just his gamer knowledge and his knowledge of the Worm universe, basically power ladders himself up until he's insanely, ridiculously powerful. And anyway, and he takes a look at the world as it is. He reviews what he knows about Worm, and then he confirms it by checking the internet and reading their sites and all that. And he points out that the PRT and the Protectorate. The PRT and the Protectorate. The PRT is supposed to be the government's oversight office for dealing with parahuman abilities, and just keeping just making sure, trying to make sure nobody goes off the rails. And the Protectorate is basically the government licensed superhero team, franchised. And he looks at how they do things and all the paperwork involved and the PR issues, and he goes, this is ridiculous. These people can't do anything. Their heroes are virtually inert because they're half buried under paperwork. He said, as he put it, even Superman would be a putz with these kind of restrictions. Most people don't like. Most of these progressive people trying to rewrite the concept of the superhero don't like superheroes because superheroes represent the idea that you don't need a government to tell you when you can go wee wee. That that the government is not the source of all good. That government is merely a small aspect of civilization and should stay small. That people acting of their own accord, according to the dictates of their own conscience, should hold a place in how a society operates. The idea of somebody going out and doing something about the crime in their community or about helping people in danger without the government's permission just throws them into a tizzy. Okay, I managed to talk myself for another half hour. Okay, it is 3 in the morning. No, wait a minute. It's 3 in the morning. Holy crap. I'm going to go ahead and call it a night, y'all. Hopefully, wake up tomorrow morning, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and start getting some crap done. I've got a stack of so much. I owe you guys work. I owe you guys work, and I need to be around about it. So, well, thank you all. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for your readership. Thank you for your donations and your pledges and your help. Thank you for all you are, for all you do. You know, what else is to say? But God bless you and be excellent to each other. I'll catch you later. Good night.